All right, today we're diving into a super interesting puzzle from the science of learning. See, there's this really powerful study technique out there. It's proven to help you remember things long term, especially the tricky stuff. But here's the crazy part, almost all of us refuse to use it. So yeah, what's going on there? Let's get into it.
So, I want you to think about how you usually study for something. You probably pick one topic, you drill it until you feel like you've got it, and then you move on to the next one, right? I mean, it feels neat, it feels tidy, it feels easy. But what if that feeling of ease is actually tricking you? What if the path that feels way harder is actually the one that's going to make the information stick? Okay, so let's break down the two big ideas here. On one side, you've got blocking. This is probably what you're used to. It's like you study topic A, then topic A again, then topic A again, and only then do you move on to topic B. Now, on the other side, we have interleaving. This is where you mix everything up. You do A, then B, then C, and then you loop back around. It looks a little messy, I know, but trust me, this is where the real learning happens.
Yeah, researchers have this awesome name for it, desirable difficulty. And those two words are key. It feels more difficult because your brain can't just go on autopilot. It's constantly having to pull up different bits of information, and, this is super important, it's forced to notice what's different between them. And all that extra effort, that's what actually forges the knowledge into your long-term memory. And this right here, this is the big question, the central mystery we're looking at today. We have tons of research that shows interleaving is way better for learning things that are easily confused. Like different painters or different kinds of math problems. And yet, when you give people the choice, almost every single time they choose blocking. Why? Why do we keep picking the strategy that we know is worse for us? Well, to get to the bottom of this, some researchers came up with a really clever experiment, and it involved mushrooms. See, the researchers had a theory. They thought, hey, maybe people just don't try the harder method because they're not motivated enough. So they designed a task where the stakes were, incredibly high. Okay, so here's the setup. They split people into two groups. Group 1, the high-stakes group, had a pretty serious job. Learn how to tell poisonous mushrooms from edible ones. You can imagine, making a mistake there is not good. Then you have Group 2, the low-stakes group. Their task was just to tell mushrooms apart based on whether they grow in acidic or alkaline soil. Kind of interesting, sure, but not exactly a life-or-death situation. And here's the key part. Both groups could choose exactly how they wanted to study. They could look at all the edible ones, then all the poisonous ones, the blocking method, or they could flip back and forth, comparing them directly. That's interleaving. The choice was totally up to them. So what would you bet happened? I mean, the logic seems pretty straightforward, right? If your life could literally be on the line, you're going to want the absolute best, most effective way to learn. You'd pick the proven superior method. You'd choose interleaving. Obviously, right?
Nope, not at all. The results were just, wow. Take a look. The low-stakes group, yeah, they preferred blocking, just like we'd expect. But the high-stakes group, the poison group, even with everything on the line, they still mostly chose blocking. So just being more motivated clearly wasn't the answer. Something else was going on. That wild result showed the researchers that this puzzle was deeper than they thought. It wasn't about motivation. Learners were missing a couple of key pieces of information.
Right. Raising the stakes just wasn't enough to get people to switch. The researchers realized that it wasn't that the learners were lazy, it's that they were coming at the problem with a completely wrong mindset, all because of two missing puzzle pieces. So here's the first clue. Researchers called it the utility of distinguishing. Basically, even in the poison group, people didn't seem to fully get that the whole entire point of the task was to tell things apart. They knew poison was bad, sure, but they didn't connect that danger to the specific learning goal of spotting the tiny differences between two very similar-looking things. And that leads directly to the second missing piece. They had the wrong goal in mind. Our default setting when we learn new categories is to look for similarities. What do all the edible mushrooms have in common? But when things are super easy to mix up, that's the wrong approach. The real goal should be to become a detective and hunt for the subtle differences. And the learners just weren't thinking that way. Okay, so with this new theory, the researchers ran another experiment. This time around, everybody was in the high-stakes, poisonous versus edible group, but for half of them. They gave a very special, very simple hint right at the beginning. And this was the hint. That's it. It says, to be able to distinguish confusable mushrooms, it is essential to identify their subtle differences. It sounds so basic, right? But what it's really doing is completely reframing the task. It's telling them, hey, your goal is not to find what's similar. Your goal is to hunt for what's different.
And boom, it worked. The results were just night and day. Look at this. The group that only had the high stakes, they stuck with blocking, same as before. But the group that got the high stakes, plus that little find differences hint, a massive, dramatic shift. They finally chose interleaving. That was the key all along.
And with that, the mystery was pretty much solved. The big takeaway is this. Just wanting to learn isn't enough. You can be super motivated, but if you're aiming for the wrong learning goal, like finding similarities when you should be hunting for differences, you're still going to pick the wrong strategy. You have to give people the right goal. Okay, so this is all super interesting, but how can we actually use this in our own lives? Let's turn this research into something practical you can do right now.
It really boils down to a simple two-step plan for yourself. First, raise the stakes. Don't just study to get a good grade. Ask yourself, okay, why is it actually critical for me to tell these things apart? Find that real-world importance. And then second, and this is the big one, consciously change your goal. Literally say to yourself, my mission right now is to be a detective. I am not looking for common threads. I am hunting for what makes these things unique.
And that brings us to this really powerful quote from the researchers who did this study. To engage learners in desirable difficulties, the key might be not to inform learners how to learn, but to reshape their learning goal. And that's such a cool idea, right? Maybe the secret to becoming a better learner isn't about finding more tips and tricks. Maybe it's about taking a step back and first making sure we're aiming at the right target. Because when you get the goal right, choosing the best way to get there becomes a whole lot easier.